Welcome, everyone, to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow. Today, we bring you an update on this crime story we had covered in a prior episode. Miss Charlie Javice has been on trial for the past several weeks. Stick around to find out the background, the story, and the surprising result. What does this story teach us? What does it tell about the Silicon Valley culture? We dig into all of it. Imagine the radiant promise of Silicon Valley's golden child, a magnetic, brilliant visionary who captivated an entire generation with her bold promises to revolutionize how students access financial aid. Charlie Javice wasn't merely a name circulating in tech circles. She was a phenomenon, an icon of innovation and audacity. Her star shone so brightly that she graced the pages of Forbes 30 Under 30, forged multi-million-dollar deals, and even persuaded the nation's largest bank that her groundbreaking startup was worth a jaw-dropping $175 million. In every boardroom and on every tech stage, she exuded an air of unstoppable momentum, a force destined to reshape an entire industry. But as the bright lights of success illuminated her meteoric rise, a darker narrative was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. Beneath that shimmering facade lay a secret so bold, so unfathomably audacious that it threatened to shatter the very empire she had so carefully built. The allure of her innovative vision masked a labyrinth of deception, setting the stage for a dramatic collapse that would soon send shockwaves through Silicon Valley and beyond. This is not a tale spun from fiction, but the riveting, true cybercrime story of Charlie Javice. A story where ambition collided with deceit, and the dazzling promise of innovation was ultimately undone by a web of lies. As her empire began to crumble, the shock waves of betrayal reverberated through high-powered boardrooms and tech startup incubators, leaving a legacy that serves as a haunting reminder. Even the brightest stars can be eclipsed when truth is sacrificed on the altar of ambition. This is the story of the Frank Company and Charlie Javice. The Frank scandal exposed, when a lie becomes criminal. And now, the show. The rise of a visionary. She was Silicon Valley's golden child, a dazzling young visionary who vowed to upend the outdated world of student financial aid. Dubbed a prodigy by the media and celebrated as an unstoppable force in fintech innovation, she was a beacon of promise in a realm hungry for change. With an aura of unassailable brilliance, she not only captivated the highest echelons of the business world, shaking hands with top executives and mingling in exclusive circles, but she also secured an eye-popping $175 million payday from one of the world's most formidable banks. To the outside world, she epitomized success, a trailblazing luminary destined to transform lives with her groundbreaking ideas. Yet lurking behind the shimmer of glossy headlines and accolades was a labyrinth of deception, meticulously woven and audacious enough to eventually implode in the most spectacular fashion. Emerging fresh from the hallowed halls of the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania in 2017, Charlie Javice set out to change the game with her brainchild, Frank. This innovative platform was not just another tech startup. It was conceived as an intuitive online solution designed to simplify the notoriously convoluted free application for federal student aid FAFSA, a process that had long left millions of students mired in frustration and confusion. Frank was positioned as the antidote to a broken system, promising to unlock access to financial aid with unprecedented ease and efficiency. It was a bold vision that resonated deeply, drawing immediate attention from investors who were eager to back what seemed to be a genuine technological revolution in the realm of student finance. Before long, the promise of Frank ignited a frenzy in the investment community. Capital flowed in by the millions as venture capitalists and angel investors alike saw in her startup the potential to not only disrupt an antiquated system, but also to generate enormous financial returns. The allure of a tech-driven solution to a long-standing problem proved irresistible. By 2021, the buzz around Frank had grown so potent that it caught the discerning eye of JPMorgan Chase, the banking giant always on the lookout for fresh avenues to capture a youthful, dynamic customer base, recognized in Frank a golden opportunity, a strategic asset, that could help them secure an entire generation of loyal banking clients. The deal that followed was nothing short of monumental. A staggering $100 to $75 million acquisition that on paper epitomized success. However, beneath the triumphant veneer of headlines and investor accolades, a dark undercurrent of deception was steadily gathering force. What appeared to be an empire built on innovation and promise was, in reality, constructed on a foundation of elaborate falsehoods. Every accolade, every handshake, and every $1 million deal was shadowed by a truth that was destined to shatter the illusion. The remarkable story of a prodigy turning a complex challenge into a lucrative opportunity was, unbeknownst to the world, also a masterclass in deception. A calculated performance designed to mask the fact that the very numbers that had fueled her meteoric rise were nothing more than a carefully orchestrated mirage. The Frank Company, the big claims, the crumbling facade. During negotiations, Javice painted an audacious picture, boldly asserting that Frank commanded a staggering user base of over 4 million, a number so colossal it promised to open vast new frontiers for a financial titan like JPMorgan. This claim was the cornerstone of her pitch, an irresistible lure that seduced investors and bankers alike with the prospect of tapping into an enormous burgeoning market. But once the ink on the deal had dried, reality struck with devastating force. The truth was far from the dazzling promise. Instead of the 4 million loyal users that had been touted, Frank's actual user count hovered at a mere 300,000, a number so drastically lower that it would have derailed the entire deal under any honest circumstances. The gulf between the promised and the real was not just significant, it was exponential, a chasm so wide that had it been revealed at the time, the acquisition would have never come to fruition. Determined to keep this egregious discrepancy under wraps, Javice reportedly went to extraordinary lengths to conceal the truth. As later testified by prosecutors, she orchestrated an elaborate campaign of deceit to ensure that the illusion of a massive user base remained intact. What had initially appeared as a dream client portfolio quickly crumbled into nothing more than a precarious house of cards, built on fragile fabrications rather than genuine achievement. The first ominous signal of this elaborate ruse came unexpectedly and with alarming clarity. JPMorgan, following standard practice, launched an email marketing campaign targeted at this supposed legion of 4 million users. But the campaign's results were nothing short of catastrophic. Bounce rates skyrocketed to astronomical levels, an immediate red flag that shattered the carefully constructed illusion. Within moments, what began as routine business operations morphed into a state of urgent crisis. Confusion turned to panic in the bank's headquarters as internal investigations were launched with a speed and intensity that left no doubt something was terribly, fatally wrong. As the investigation deepened, each new discovery peeled back another layer of the deception, exposing a meticulously engineered scam that had misled one of the world's most sophisticated financial institutions. The staggering disparity between the advertised 4 million users and the actual count of less than 300,000 was more than a mere error. It was a deliberate manipulation, a calculated falsehood designed to deceive and secure a deal that, under honest scrutiny, would have crumbled before it even began. Unmasking the fraud. The unfolding trial, which captivated the financial world, was nothing short of a high-stakes drama. Federal prosecutors painted a clear picture. When JPMorgan demanded verification of Frank's user base, Charlie Javice didn't hesitate to fabricate the numbers. The evidence showed that she even paid a college friend $18,000 to generate millions of bogus names and details, a ruse meant to convince everyone that Frank was booming. Notably, her own chief of engineering, Patrick Vovor, testified that she had asked him to produce synthetic data. He refused, drawing a clear line he wouldn't cross. It was a case where every falsehood added another brick to the crumbling wall of deception. As alleged, during high-stakes negotiations, Javice painted a dazzling picture for JPMorgan, confidently asserting that Frank boasted over 4 million active users, a staggering figure that promised to unlock a torrent of new customers for the banking titan. This bold claim was meant to reassure and excite, suggesting that Frank was not just another startup, but a revolution in financial technology that would forever change the customer landscape for the bank. Yet, as soon as the ink dried on the deal, a crushing revelation shattered the illusion. Frank's user base was a cruel mirage. Instead of the 4 million customers that had been promised, the numbers revealed a mere 300,000, a pitiful fraction of what had been advertised. The financial giant soon realized it had been masterfully conned, a victim of an audacious deception that had built its foundation on falsehoods. What began as a subtle crack in the narrative soon ballooned into a yawning chasm of betrayal. The first ominous sign came not from a grand expose, but from a simple routine test. JPMorgan's standard email marketing campaign. When messages were sent out to the supposedly vast user base, the responses, or rather the lack thereof, spoke volumes. Bounce rates soared to astronomical levels, shattering the illusion of legitimacy and triggering a cascade of alarm throughout the bank's headquarters. In boardrooms that once buzzed with optimism, a heavy silence fell as executives grappled with the unsettling reality that something was terribly, fatally wrong. Frantic whispers and urgent phone calls filled the corridors as the bank's internal investigation swung into high gear. What had been dismissed as a minor oversight quickly unraveled into a web of discrepancies and fabrications. Each layer of scrutiny peeled away yet another part of the facade, revealing a disturbing pattern of manipulation and deceit. The deeper the investigators delved, the more chilling the discoveries became, exposing a meticulously constructed scheme designed to mislead one of the world's most sophisticated financial institutions. This was not a simple error or a miscalculation. It was a deliberate, calculated fraud that sent shockwaves through the very core of JPMorgan's operations. The staggering gap between the claimed 4 million users and the actual 300,000 painted a vivid picture of a startup built on hollow promises, where every statistic was a lie carefully engineered to lure in unsuspecting investors. And as the investigation advanced, the scale of the deception became all too clear. A sophisticated scheme that had not only duped a major bank, but also exposed the vulnerabilities of an entire industry, chasing the next big promise in tech innovation. The trial and the verdict. As the courtroom drama intensified, the defense tried to spin the tale differently. Leading attorney Jose Baez argued that JPMorgan was experiencing buyer's remorse, insinuating that the bank knew the real numbers all along, but sought a scapegoat once regulatory shifts devalued the acquisition. He claimed that in the whirlwind of tech's rapid-fire growth, due diligence sometimes takes a back seat to bold, ambitious deals. As tensions reached a fever pitch in the courtroom, the atmosphere became electric, with drama and high stakes. The defense, desperate to salvage the narrative, began to spin an alternative tale. Their lead attorney, Jose Baez, stepped forward with a persuasive argument that turned the spotlight onto JPMorgan itself. He claimed that the bank wasn't an innocent bystander at all. It was, in fact, suffering from a deep case of buyer's remorse. Baez insisted that JPMorgan had been aware of the true modest numbers from the start, but when sweeping regulatory changes devalued the acquisition, the bank was quick to search for a convenient scapegoat to explain its own missteps. In a passionate defense, Baez painted a picture of a cutthroat tech landscape where rapid-fire growth and the lure of big deals often led to corners being cut. He argued that in this whirlwind environment, due diligence was frequently sacrificed at the altar of ambition, and that the bank's rush to secure a promising startup might have blinded it to the warning signs. According to him, the entire debacle was less about intentional deceit on the part of his client and more about the volatile nature of high-stakes mergers in a rapidly evolving industry. Yet, as compelling as this narrative might have seemed, it failed to shake the resolve of the jury. Over the course of 6 grueling weeks, testimony after testimony revealed a damning tapestry of deceit and manipulation. Despite the defense's attempts to reframe the situation, the facts piled up relentlessly. In a stunning display of efficiency, the jury retreated for only 8 hours of deliberation, spread over 2 intense days before emerging with a clear and unequivocal verdict. However, after 6 weeks of intense testimony and only 8 hours of deliberation spread over 2 days, the jury was resolute. The verdict? Guilty. Convictions included conspiracy to commit securities and wire fraud, along with charges of bank, wire, and securities fraud. For a once revered entrepreneur, this marked the beginning of a 30-year potential prison sentence. Their decision was as swift as it was decisive. Guilty. The charges were damning, ranging from conspiracy to commit securities and wire fraud to multiple counts of bank, wire, and securities fraud. For Charlie Javice, the once revered entrepreneur and shining star of Silicon Valley, this conviction marked the beginning of a catastrophic fall from grace. The verdict was not just a legal judgment, it was a public denouncement that now threatened to cage her in prison for up to 30 long years. What had once been a story of groundbreaking innovation and promise had morphed into a cautionary tale of ambition run amok, a narrative where the price of deceit is measured in decades behind bars. Miss Charlie's The Fall from Grace. In an industry where dreams are spun into billions and every innovation is a gamble with the future, Charlie Javice's catastrophic collapse emerged as a searing cautionary tale. Once the shining embodiment of Silicon Valley's relentless ambition, a young CEO celebrated as a visionary pioneer whose dazzling smile graced the covers of top magazines and whose bold ideas ignited the passions of investors everywhere. She now stands as a stark reminder of how ambition can veer disastrously into deception. Her meteoric rise was the stuff of legend, a prodigy whose every move was meticulously chronicled in headlines and whose promises of transforming financial aid for millions captivated an entire generation. But as the layers of her success were peeled back, the reality of her empire, a house of cards built on manipulated numbers and empty boasts, became painfully apparent. The very dreams that had once enchanted the tech world and promised to rewrite the rules of finance had, in the end, betrayed their architect. The seismic shock of her conviction sent ripples far beyond the courtroom. Boardrooms across the nation fell silent as financial analysts and tech insiders struggled to comprehend the unfathomable. How could a titan like JPMorgan Chase, renowned for its meticulous scrutiny and financial acumen, be so thoroughly misled by a facade? The scandal prompted a furious reevaluation of trust and due diligence, forcing even the most seasoned executives to question whether the lure of rapid growth had blinded them to critical warning signs. In the wake of her downfall, what was once hailed as unassailable innovation has become a parable of hubris, a grim lesson in the high cost of unchecked ambition, where the line between groundbreaking vision and calculated fraud is all too easily crossed. A broader conversation on startup fraud. But the story doesn't end there. It only deepens. Javice's saga has swiftly become a touchstone for high-profile tech scandals, evoking stark comparisons to other infamous cases, like Elizabeth Holmes and the notorious Theranos debacle. In many ways, her case forces everyone to confront unsettling questions about the culture of unbridled growth in the tech world. How did we come to a point where the pursuit of rapid expansion and the intoxicating allure of inflated metrics can blur the line between genuine innovation and outright fraud? In this era where startups are lauded for their exponential growth and groundbreaking visions, the seductive power of overhyped numbers can transform an ambitious idea into a perilous house of cards. The promise of revolutionizing an industry is enticing, almost irresistible. But when that promise is built on embellishments and falsified figures, it begs the question, can the potential of a visionary concept ever truly justify such drastic manipulation of the facts? The stakes are high, and the ramifications are far-reaching. As one insightful analyst remarked, in a world that prizes rapid, often dizzying growth, the boundary between visionary brilliance and deceptive fraud becomes alarmingly thin. What was once celebrated as disruptive innovation can quickly morph into a cautionary tale, a vivid reminder that in the relentless race for success, integrity is often the first casualty. Javice's case stands as a powerful and chilling example of how ambition and the relentless drive for expansion can lead to a dangerous erosion of ethical standards, a phenomenon that not only reshapes individual destinies, but also sends shockwaves throughout an industry that once believed it was invincible. Aftermath and the road ahead. The fallout from this scandal is shaking things up in ways we're only beginning to understand. It's not just that investors and top bankers were misled. The real damage is the trust that's been lost in a system once celebrated for its innovation. With Javice set to face the music in court at 11 a.m. on July 26th, it feels like we're all on the edge of our seats, waiting for the final twist in this saga. And this isn't just about one case. It's sparking a big conversation in Silicon Valley. Everywhere you turn, people are debating how to tighten oversight and improve due diligence in fintech. The scandal has become a wake-up call, reminding everyone that in the rush to push boundaries and chase big ideas, we can sometimes lose sight of the fundamentals. The road ahead is going to be about rebuilding that trust and making sure this kind of deception never happens again. Aftermath and the road ahead. The fallout from this scandal is shaking things up in ways we are only beginning to understand. It's not just that investors and top bankers were misled. The real damage is the trust that's been lost in a system once celebrated for its innovation. With Javice set to face the music in court at 11 a.m. on July 26th, it feels like we're all on the edge of our seats, waiting for the final twist in this saga. And this isn't just about one case. It's sparking a big conversation in Silicon Valley. Everywhere you turn, people are debating how to tighten oversight and improve due diligence in fintech. The scandal has become a wake-up call, reminding everyone that in the rush to push boundaries and chase big ideas, we can sometimes lose sight of the fundamentals. The road ahead is going to be about rebuilding that trust and making sure this kind of deception never happens again. See? Think about it this way. Let's break it down conversationally. Imagine a 24-year-old founder pitching an idea so revolutionary that the nation's biggest bank signs over $175 million on the spot. That was Charlie Javice, as in her startup, Frank. The pitch was powerful, promising to streamline financial aid applications and help millions of students. Investors loved it, and the media couldn't stop talking about the future she was shaping. But then a simple email campaign revealed a glaring inconsistency. The numbers were wildly inflated. Instead of millions, Frank only had a fraction of that. And when questioned, the answer was a web of fabrications, with even a trusted engineer refusing to cross ethical lines. In the courtroom, as evidence piled up, it became clear that this wasn't just a minor embellishment. It was an elaborate scheme designed to dupe a banking giant. The defense's claim of buyer's remorse rang hollow against the overwhelming testimony. Ultimately, the jury's swift 8-hour deliberation after a grueling 6-week trial underscored one thing: the truth had prevailed, and the consequences were severe. A cautionary tale. As we close the book on this wild ride, let's take a step back and ask, well, what does this all really mean? Charlie Javice wasn't just another startup founder. She was a rising star, a visionary, someone who convinced the world she was building something revolutionary. But when the dust settled, all that was left was a web of deception, a financial giant duped, and a future that now holds the possibility of decades behind bars. This isn't just another scandal. It's a wake-up call. In an industry obsessed with hypergrowth and billion-dollar valuations, where the right pitch can turn dreams into fortunes overnight, the lines between ambition and fraud can blur in dangerous ways. We've seen it before and will likely see it again. Now, as Javice awaits sentencing, the fallout is already reshaping how investors, banks, and regulators think about trust. Because in the end, success isn't about smoke and mirrors. It's about real value, real impact, and real honesty. And when those things get lost in the chase for the next big thing, stories like this one are bound to happen. Thanks for listening. Do us a favor, if not too much to ask, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as we are trying to grow it and continue bringing you more content. Thanks again. Well, that wraps this up. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our episode. The next one is coming right up. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast and downloading on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for watching.